Hello, and welcome again to Orthodoxy Transforming. In this podcast, we will review the first great leap into spirituality, which, as you remember, is to recall that everything is temporary. Everything has a beginning and an end. And then we will look into how meditation complements and reinforces the training of the mind toward enlightenment. What is meditation? Meditation is systematically retraining your brain to remember the obvious. Let me say that again. Meditation is systematically retraining your brain to remember the obvious. We saw in the last podcast that the first step to spirituality is the grand leap into understanding that everything is temporary. You, me, this podcast, your car, your house, your body, your clothes, everything. Even your ideas about yourself are temporary. Do you feel the same about yourself today as you did yesterday? No, of course not. You have gained weight or lost weight. You have shed millions of cells of skin, maybe trillions. You have had millions of impulses, of new perceptions go through your brain, not only in the last 24 hours, but in the last few minutes. And they all had a beginning and an end. Everything does, including our lives as we perceive them. We began and we shall end. Our bodies were born and they shall die. There is no way around this. Most people cannot bear this significant but obvious revelation. They would rather distract themselves with nonsense and entertainments designed to help forget that today began and today will end, and so will life. Most of the human race lives in absolute denial. However, the spiritual person cannot live in denial, because spirituality is all about the truth. And what is the truth? The way things really are. The spirit of the thing, the heart of the matter. Denying the truth is not the same as not knowing the truth. Denying the truth means to know the truth and ignore it. But the spiritual path demands that we know the truth and accept it. Not only accept it, but embrace it. Because most people live in denial about death and the temporary nature of everything around them, they keep themselves distracted, and they don't like lots of quiet time to think. In other words, they keep their minds flooded with noise of every kind, so the truth of mortality cannot find a way, not even a crack, into their consciousness. They never sit quietly. They never consider the truth of the situation. They never remember the heart of the matter. They would rather have noise than the quiet of the truth. Therefore, most people who are uninterested in spirituality never meditate. They never take the time to systematically retrain their brain to remember the obvious. But those interested in spirituality do. Why? Because meditation is magic? No. However, this is the greatest benefit of observing the temporary nature of everything. You will want to think about it, and you will want to be brave enough to do so, and to do so, you will need to meditate. Meditation is not magic. However, it does allow for quiet, being with oneself, listening to the inside of one's own mind. Following the seemingly never-ending flood of noise, ideas, things to do, chatter, and the blowing of thoughts here and there, most people are not focused. They have very undisciplined minds. They don't want to sit and think. They're afraid of it. If they sit and think in the quiet, they might remember. If they might remember, they might recall that they are temporary. And if they remember their mortality, they might fear it. And if they experience fear, they might panic. So they wall off the inevitable until it comes upon them one day mercilessly. And then they reel in horror, wondering how such a thing could happen to them or someone they love. If they had been meditating on this first spiritual principle, they would not be so shocked. In fact, they might even embrace the ongoing nature of the universe. Meditation is not a weird Eastern practice. Meditation is offered and encouraged in all spiritual traditions, including Christianity and Judaism and Islam. Meditation is the practice of sitting quietly, calming the mind from its frenetic worry and fretting, and concentrating on what really matters in life. Many books have been written on meditation and how to do it right. It's my opinion there's no wrong way to meditate unless you don't do it at all. There's no wrong way to sit quiet and think. If you sit quietly, it does help, I have found, to count your breaths or calmly watch all your thoughts go by in the mad rush. But like I said, the only wrong way to meditate is to not do it. So pick a quiet spot. Sit, lie down, listen to some soft music or other aid, and I'll talk about that a little later, and simply contemplate this new truth that you are beginning to remember. Retrain your brain to remember the obvious. Everything is temporary, everything. As you sit quietly, consider every single thing that has a beginning and an end, including the hair on your head. Everything has a beginning and an end, even your meditation, and at this point, even this podcast. We will look at more benefits of understanding the truth of temporariness in the next podcast. Stay on the road.